Well, morning, everybody. Morning, Bobby. How you doing?
Doing excellent. How you doing, Ed?
Doing good. I'm glad we changed this to the veteran thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. First thing I want to go, I mean, there's a lot of things we can talk about, different things, but I like to want to get in right away and hit what the VA home loan is for some people who don't understand that, because a lot of people coming to this might not know the benefits, right?
Yeah.
So I'm did some little things. Benefits of veterans using the VA home loan include, which we all know, no down payment, woo-hoo. Limited closing costs, which means is you can either use yield spread to pay for some of the closing costs. You can get the seller pay for it. You can get gifts. There's many different ways of doing it. There's no private mortgage insurance. That is that monthly payment that you have in case.
That is huge.
It is, because on average, like USDA is 0.35. So you figure that's about, 150 to 200 and some dollars a month. FHA is 0.55. So you figure that's another 200 and something to 300 and something per month that you're not paying as a veteran. I won't even get into conventional, because conventional is all over the board depending on your FICO score. And that could be as low as $98. But most people who are doing the VA loan, it's doing the VA loan because they don't have a perfect credit, right? They have a decent FICO score, but not perfect. No prepayment penalties, which is big. But I think the biggest thing most people don't realize is default assistance. So if you get into trouble while you have a VA loan, they don't just say, get the hell out.
Yeah.
We're going to sell your house. They work with you to keep you in there. Kind of, even FHA has one where they'll put up to 12 months in another like loan against the property. So when you refinance or sell it, they get paid back.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
So another thing is you can use it multiple times. That's the best part. And if you're 10% or greater disability, you don't have the funding fee, which is huge for most people, because most people getting out on average will have at least a 10% disability these days. I do. And I just complained enough.
Now, question real quick. Can you close two VA loans concurrently, right? Because back in the day,
you mean if you have one now and you have not a big deal, less than 24 hours, if that.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's not like, you got to remember, back in the day, not as electronic as today is. You're back in the day is a while ago. What, 10 years?
12, yeah.
Yeah. So back, 12 years ago, we were still using fax machines.
Yeah.
By the way, fax machines is a device that you actually anyway, I was trying to explain.
Still secure, right?
Yeah, so much so that a lot of CPAs and stuff are like, I can only fax it to you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to email it. Now we have such secure stuff, and I always tell them, go ahead and password protect it. I don't care. And this is what we agree the password to be. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest thing about the VA loan, I kind of want to get into a few different things, but people want to know about credit score. All right. Everybody says, well, VA doesn't have a credit score, right? Well, let's go back to this. So you must have a satisfactory credit, sufficient income to meet it, and have a COE, certificate of eligibility. You know what a COE is, Bobby?
Yeah. Showing that you actually serve the amount of time that you're supposed to.
Right. And so there's a couple ways you can do it. You can go get it yourself, or we can get it for you. And that's all I kind of want to go over here. But
yeah,
you can go to the VA and check it out. Well, and the reason I say this is because I had a gentleman who was not dishonorably discharged, but he was other than honorable. And he, one I had a medical issue that he was discharged because of the medical after boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on when you get hurt, if you got hurt during boot camp and stuff, if you have enough, you might get the benefit of being a VA home, be able to get
interesting.
Yeah. But his issue was, he lied about his back issue, and they didn't find it until he was in boot camp.
Oh,
he was hurt. He was okay when, going through everything, but then with doing the stuff it came back, and then they found out it's been a long-term thing, and they're like, get out, you're out of here.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Boot camp is to figure out if you're good enough and to get out of here.
But now what about the OTH one?
What's OTH?
Other than honorable?
It just depends. And that's what the COE will tell you. And then sometimes certificate eligibility, it's electronic. So if you go in there and if you've been in the last, 10, 12 years, it's automatic. It's easy to get. If you were long time ago, 30, 40 years ago, and you never got a VA loan, it's going to take a couple days to get, potentially, because I have to research the records.
Okay.
And that's why you can go on and figure out if you're eligible. Because I've had a few people go, I don't know if I am, because if you look at reservists, it's a totally different factor. It's not about being in for 2 years, not about for 6 years. It's about how many times you actually were active, how many times you were active and how many hours you put in and all that kind of stuff. And you have to calculate all that.
Yeah.
And so you run those numbers. But if you were in reserves and then you were deployed, you're good on average.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
because normally deployment's going to be
12
what?
months,
Yeah,
18 months. Yeah. And that's the thing is if you got, that's the difference. That's why a lot of reservists are able to get it now so much easier and not the whole factor, how long, because they actually had, unfortunately, were deployed.
Yeah.
And I said, unfortunately, because most people went into the reserves, so they didn't have to worry about being deployed.
Yeah, no kid, man. There was a time when they were stop lossing everyone and sending, reservists out there. And
well, that was the whole purpose of when Obama went. He was like, okay, we're going to increase the reserves just in case we need them and not have them active duty. And I remember when I got out, everybody's like, or I should say my wife at the time was like, aren't you going to go in reserves? No. Navy stands for never again volunteer myself.
yeah.
And I said, I could, if that's the case, I could always go to war. Oh, it's not going to happen. Well, she got remarried years later and he was in the reserves. And guess what happened? He got deployed.
My dad got recalled. So he did 4 years active and then was in reserves my entire childhood. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually ended up serving at the same time, but he got sent down to China Lake.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I was in Virginia Beach, but yeah. So
China Lake,
20 years later, he gets recalled back to active duty, and he was active for like a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
You never know. So just understand that when you sign online, you potentially can go there. So another issue that a lot of people understand, which I think is the biggest thing, is if you've ever experienced bankruptcy or foreclosure, conventional has 4 years to 7 years, depending on what those bankruptcy or foreclosure is at waiting periods. Short sales 3 to 4 years. Everything's different. FHA has different guidelines for chapter 13, chapter 7 bankruptcy foreclosures, but the VA is basically what they do is they help you get back on your feet. The waiting periods for most of the stuff is 2 years for chapter 7 bankruptcy. So I went bankrupt today, 2 years from now after the discharge date, so that's that discharge date. 2 years later, you can go ahead and get a VA loan.
Gotcha.
Chapter 13, 1 year after bankruptcy. And that reason that chapter 13 is 1 year is because you're in it for 3 to 5 years making payments on it. Right. So then you're done and you're able to get back on your feet.
Okay.
I'm like chapter 7, get rid of everything. I know that's wrong, but bankruptcy has made a totally different. It's not the stigma it was back in before 2006. Before 2006, it was the kiss of death. If you went bankrupt, nobody would touch you for years. And then if you ever had one late payment on anything, then you're done. Ever since then, it's not looked so bad upon.
Just because so many people went through it.
Yes, because it just what it's there for is to help people that don't, things that unfortunately happen. Now, people who run up stuff on purpose and then go bankrupt, that's a totally different situation, right?
Yeah.
Foreclosure, which affected a lot of people, and so it's 2 years after foreclosure. However, if it's a VA foreclosure, what happens?
Good question. I don't know the answer.
You lose that part of that eligibility of your loan. So technically you can have 2 VA home loans at the same time. So you're going to lose the eligibility of that part that's associated with that loan. And the only way to get it back is to pay a certain amount to the VA to get it back. So you can still buy with your VA loan, but you might have a down payment, meaning that if your eligibility doesn't cover, say you're trying to buy a $700,000 house and you only have enough eligibility for 600, the difference between 600 and 700, that you'd have to put a quarter of that down. So it's still a great program.
Okay. Yeah. And still no PMI. Right?
Yeah, nothing. Yeah.
Even if you're missing part of your eligibility.
No PMI. The only difference is you have to put down a quarter of the difference. And again, don't quote me on exactly everything I'm saying because things change and this could be out for a while, after it was out. Let's look at each situation and see where you're at, because you got to run the numbers to see how much eligibility you have. Because I've helped people have two VA loans at the same time. They transferred from where they were to another place and they kept that VA home loan.
Gotcha.
But you have to get the authority from VA to allow it to happen.
Okay.
It's not a big deal. And the other thing is VA, low credit scores, right? VA doesn't actually have a credit score minimum. And you hear this all the time. Everybody out there on TikTok, VA doesn't have a credit score. I can help you. Give me a call here. True. However, everything's a little different. What I mean by that is, on average, people want at least a 580 FICO score. And I'm in that situation where if you have a 580, give me 30 days to help you get up to at least a 620. It's 580 is a manual underwrite. Manual underwrite means an actual person has to actually underwrite that. It's not done automated. If I get you a 620, it's automated, so much less. If you got to cross your T's and dot the I's on the manual underwrite, people who do this go like, yes, they're so happy to be in the home, but it's like having that bathroom remodeled and that person takes 6 months to do a remodel that should take 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yes, you get it done. Are you happy with it? That is done, but you're not super happy with the person doing it.
Gotcha.
You understand what I'm getting at? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to be happy that you're in the house. You're going to be happy that I helped you, but you're going to hate the fact of what you went through, that you're not going to tell people it was such a great job. But if I get you to 620, it's a totally different world.
Yeah.
Again, we can do lower FICO scores than you can do on conventional loans, because conventional loan, you really don't want to do a 620 FICO score, 660 FICO score, 680 FICO score. You want to do over 700. I'm not saying you can't. It's just those numbers really affect what that interest rate is.
So why is it that VA doesn't necessarily care about your credit score?
Because they're here to help vets.
So, okay.
That's why it's not in the VA underwriting stuff, because they guarantee 25% of the loan. So when a lender takes on that loan, 25% of that loan is guaranteed that if it goes bad, they get 25%.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the guarantee on there. So VA doesn't, that's a huge guarantee. Nobody else does that. And that's why they're like, okay, we don't care. We're here to help veterans. They go through issues. They have problems. Have PTSD. They finally get their life together. Should they suffer for the next 20 years that they had that issue that we didn't help them deal with when they got out of the service?
I can say most active duty military people, man, have bad credit because you make no money and you got all kinds of sharks right outside the base, right? Gosh, there were so many guys who bought cars where they didn't read the fine print, and they could charge it, up to like 60% interest, man.
And then it was allotment. They came in and through your pay and took your money.
Yeah. Garnish wages. Yeah, that's bad.
Well, garnish is a harsh word. Hey, go in and have this allotment done.
By the way, you're not getting this money.
Yeah, I mean, and they actually go put all their information and all the news, anything that do news to the veteran community, not veteran community, but just while you're in, all that stuff. Yeah, they really are preying on you. You got to be very careful.
Well, in boot camp, we had 2 different people from banks come in, right? And one was Navy Federal, I know, because that's the bank I picked, and I don't remember what the other one was. But you send a pretty girl in front of a bunch of guys in boot camp. They haven't seen women in 3 months. They're going to pick the prettiest girl. I'll put my money at her bank.
Yeah. Well, the problem was when I was in the early time, you couldn't be part of that Navy Federal. Only time you could be in Navy Federal if you were deployed.
No kidding.
Yeah, and then they changed it because they wanted more people.
Yeah, that was a good bank.
Well, no, I mean, I have it now, but it's not like they're a great bank for overall, but mortgages, no.
Oh, for mortgages, yeah.
I mean, it's just like USAA, great insurance company, but not for mortgages.
Gotcha.
They're so big, they take too long, and in this market, it's about nimble. Get into when I can do a VA loan, if we're only waiting on the appraisal, it can be done in less than 21 days. If the appraiser gets it done on a timely manner, because you can't really rush VA loans because the VA appraisal is done through the VA system.
Mm-hmm.
So what people don't realize, we don't order it through a management company or through one of our panel appraisers. You go into the VA system, need an appraiser, and then they go, I'll do it. And they have up to 10 days after they inspect the property to get that appraisal in. There's the word I was looking for. Yeah. So sometimes they do it fast, in 7 days. Sometimes they take their old sweet time. It just depends on who the appraiser is and what location it's in.
Now, to tie into that appraisal with VA, so I know we talked about this before. That my first VA transaction, the appraiser was coming out of Sacramento, and he called Tidewater on it because it was so overpriced.
Well, it was just, but it was, so Tidewater means it's not going to come in at value.
Yeah, and I was like, what is Tidewater and what is going on here?
I never heard that till you said it. The last time we had this conversation, that was probably like 5 years. I don't know how long we've been doing it. But it was like, okay, I've never had an issue where the value never came in. And then after that, I had a couple.
No kidding.
But one of the things so here's something that information for real estate agents and lenders. If you have an appraiser you don't want on any order that you do, you just have to let them know that they have someone in the transaction has a relationship with that person. They don't need any more than that.
Gotcha.
Because they don't want to have an issue.
Inside baseball.
Well, you never said what that relationship is. Your relationship could be the fact that you just don't like he brings in horrible appraisals.
Yeah.
Right. Or the other issues, or you just want to different. And this is on anything. You can always say that somebody in the transaction has an issue, has a relationship with that appraiser. They don't ask who it is. What's that relationship? They don't want to go that far into it. They'll just get a new appraiser. It's not worth it.
Yeah. And it's like, obviously this appraiser was coming from Sacramento, didn't even want to waste his trip to come down to Modesto, just automatically called it just after a quick look at the MLS,
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. So if it's not, we'll know eventually who it is, because it's through the VA system and we can figure out who it was. And then the difference between ordering the appraisal as a veteran is they don't pay up front. They pay once the transaction is closed, where any other FHA, conventional, those kind of things, they have prepay for the appraisal through a credit card. The difference in VA, it's totally opposite, because the veteran doesn't have to pay for the appraisal. We can absorb that cost, or they can pay it afterwards.
Yeah.
All right. And so that's just quick, 16 minutes on different things, and we'll go more in depth on the VA loan and other stuff to help you through the process so you can understand what's happening out there. And that's all I have for today. How about you, Bobby?
That's it, man.
All
yeah. Check out my VA Homebuyers Network. That's my Facebook group.
All right. Check it out.
Right.
If you like what we do here, like I always say, subscribe. Go to my YouTube channel, Ed Parco. Go to Bobby, which is Robert Atkins Realtor, his YouTube channel. And also you can find him out everywhere online. Bobby, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Ed.